that you just got to decide if it's what you want to do. Like if you want to do it, I think go for it. I think people are scared to start because it's this unknown thing. They think that business is like this big, scary fucking monster, but it's not, man. Like there are a million ways to make money.
Bringing you the biggest names and brightest minds in fitness to give you behind the scenes access and how they created some of the most profitable and sustainable businesses the industry's ever seen. Having deep conversations about the shit that most fitness entrepreneurs don't want to talk about but have to in order to create a business that'll thrive for years to come. Dropping the knowledge and tools necessary to help you follow in their footsteps and create an empire of your own. I'm Sebastiano Mangiafico. This is FitBiz Talk. Welcome back to the show. This is episode 5, and today we have Danny Lehr, the co-founder of Caffeine and Kilos, coming on. Now, Danny started his career as a physical education teacher and wrestling coach. He went on to become a well-seasoned weightlifter, wanted to start a weightlifting event, and him and his partner, Dean, decided, hey, let's make some apparel for this event. Maybe we can offer some coffee. And they have gone on to create Caffeine and Kilos, which is one of the most recognized brands in fitness for apparel, and they make one hell of a coffee. So in this episode, Danny really dives into how they created Caffeine and Kilos, how they managed to stay in the industry for a number of years, and what he's learned along the way and the people that have helped him. So here's Danny, and I hope you enjoy the show. Danny, what's going on? Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
So you're out in Sacramento, huh? How's the weather out there?
It's a little windy, but it's nice today. It's I think maybe right around 80 degrees, so perfect.
Nice, good to hear. Yeah, here in Florida, it's been brutally hot and humid.
Yeah. A couple days ago, we had a 100-degree day, which that's not out of the ordinary, but it's a little early in the year for that. But no, today it's nice.
Nice, beautiful. So, kind of diving right in here, talking about Caffeine and Kilos. So, you originally were an owner of a gym or a coach, and you kind of came into the Caffeine and Kilos scene. So, can you talk about where that idea came from?
Yeah, man. So, I was teaching PE. And then I taught PE for 8 years, and I loved it. I had a great time doing that. But while I was doing that, also I had a gym. Still have the gym. It's Excel Health and Fitness, Crossfit Excel affiliate. And so we have a yoga studio and some other stuff. So at the time, it was much smaller, though. It was just kind of the CrossFit affiliate. And so I had some other friends in the CrossFit industry. We started in 2008. And so you start at that time, you kind of know there's not as many CrossFit gyms there are now, right? So you kind of know everybody that owns one, around you. And then I was competing in weightlifting. I was lifting for California Strength. So I was doing a bunch of local meets around here and some national meets. And so through that, I kind of, same thing. I got to know a lot of the weightlifters that are on the national level, right? Only so many people kind of get to that level and do that on a regular basis. And you see them a couple times throughout the year. So I'm doing that. And then a friend of mine who I just I didn't know him that well. I guess I could say an acquaintance at that point, just called me one day and said, hey man, I want to hold a weightlifting meet and get all the best lifters in the country together. And I think you could help put this together and it could be fun. So, yeah, sounds like a good time. We have a bunch of friends in weightlifting who'd be interested. And if we can pay cash prizes to weightlifters, because at that time especially, there's no money in weightlifting.
No,
and so
not a lot.
Yeah, and really not really now too much either. But at least there's a few more avenues. But so that was the plan, is just to hold this big event and get the best lifters in the country out and and give them a crowd to lift in front of. So we'll host a CrossFit style competition also. That way we can get some money to pay for the venue. We'll get sponsors to fund the cash prizes for the weightlifters. And that was kind of the start of it. It was just going to be a one-time event. And then we had talked about kind of how, we just like to drink coffee and lift weights, and how everyone we know in the fitness industry, that caffeine and coffee is a big part of that. Caffeine is the number one, most tested and proven ergogenic aid. And it kind of, it sounds good and everything. And then that's where our third founding partner, Dean, comes in. Is he always, he's just cool. He's just one of those guys. He just looks cool, dresses cool. And so he had some kind of underground brand he was kind of working on a little bit. And so he was doing CrossFit and competing in CrossFit at the time. So anyway, we kind of started talking about it, and we realized that the idea of maybe doing some apparel and the competition are really the same thing. It's really the same idea. It's the same group of people. It's the same mission, just kind of growing weightlifting, but also just an active health, a healthy active lifestyle, and everything that comes along with that. And so that was kind of it. So how it worked out is that initial event essentially was the initial kind of funding for the company. And so we used the money from that, any proceeds of money from that event to just buy more inventory and go that route. So leading up to that competition, we started, we got a couple, a main shirt design we really liked, and we released it and started sending it out to all our friends in the industry, and everyone really liked it. And so we actually started selling the shirts online and the coffee at the same time. It's like, well, if we're Caffeine and Kilos and we're selling shirts, we should let's find out more about this coffee and get into that more. Yeah. Like, what does that entail? And so we went through that whole process and got that thing going. And so we that's a common question. People say what came first, the coffee or the apparel, because we saw a lot of apparel. And it's right around the same time, So at that event in September, so this all started, I think the first time he called me was like end of May, early June. The event was in middle of September. And in that time, from middle of May, whatever, in like middle of June, we had stuff online. And then the event in September, we had already sold a bunch of shirts and stuff. And so we just kept selling. And at the event, we sold a bunch of the shirts, sold a bunch of coffee there. The event went really well. People had a good time. And that kind of is what launched Caffeine and Kilos.
Nice. So did you guys originally kind of put a business plan in place, or was it like a pants in the seat and just get going and we'll get to it eventually?
Yeah. No business plans. That's there was none of that.
No business plans.
No.
I mean, if that works, it works, right?
Yeah, it was kind of it was kind of tongue in cheek. I mean, it was an accidental business. So like when we first started talking, the truth is we had no plans on this being, what it is. It was kind of like we just wanted to host a competition, man. Like we just wanted to get people together and do a competition and watch the best weightlifters in the country. And I just wanted to get really high caliber lifters out. I wanted to make it a meet that I didn't qualify to lift at, and we wanted to get a bunch of people out to do the CrossFit competition, have a good time.
Yeah. Now what about partnership agreements? Is that something you guys put into place also, or no?
So that kind of happened. So once we realized, all right, so first it was just the event, and then once we started moving on that, and then once we kind of realized people wanted these shirts, we kind of started selling the shirts. We said, okay, well, we need to actually formalize some things here. And so we sat down and formed an LLC with the three of us, kind of quick and dirty. And that was there's actually at one of the gyms, one of the members was a lawyer, and he's a nice guy, and kind of sat down and just, hey, here you go. Let's just get this set up real quick.
Yeah.
Just like, let's just get this laid out so at least we know ownership percentages and everything's all squared away. So we got that all done, laid out. And then the rest of it just kind of, it was a whirlwind, man. Like it went, it just skyrocketed, People talk about hockey stick curve, but we missed the bottom part. It just kind of went straight up.
Straight up. You guys hit it right at the right times, right when CrossFit was really exploding.
Yeah, it's 2013. So, it was CrossFit was growing at that time, but also I think, weightlifting was growing at that time. Also, there's a void for sure. And what that was, what we saw is that all the apparel brands, and this isn't knocking anybody, it's just what was going on. The apparel brands in fitness at that time and in CrossFit were all super corny, right? So,
yeah.
And I had some of that stuff. I did. Like, I had some of those shirts. It's all fine. But it's like you couldn't wear them out and about, right? Like, you'd have a shirt that would, whatever, like, Wad Killer, and has the big machine gun on, right? I'm talking about. Or then, someone do a super corny one, like, if you like my grandma's cookies, you should see her snatch or whatever.
Yeah, something. Nothing. You wear it to the gym and you come back home. You don't want to wear it out in public unless you really want to look like a douchebag.
Exactly. Wear it to the gym and you go home. Like I would never wear that to my niece's birthday party. I wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't wear it out to dinner or like whatever, like out and around town. And so that's what we kind of saw that. So when we started talking about, like shirt designs, that's where Dean comes in. Is he's like big in kind of streetwear. He knows that industry really well. He knows, again, like what's cool, what's upcoming. And so that's he has all his carte blanche on designs as far as what he wants to do. So that was it. So that was the whole goal, and what we still stick to is like we want stuff that's comfortable, that like feels good on, right, and something that you would feel comfortable wearing to the gym and working out in, but also that looks good, that you could wear out to dinner, you could just wear around town, you could wear to your niece's birthday party. It's something you could wear in the gym, but you could also just wear around town. And so that was kind of what there really wasn't. Like that was definitely a void in the market, and we kind of saw that, and that was our lane. We said, this is what we're doing, this is what we're going for. We're making stuff. We're not going to sell out, and it's like we say, anyone, you could sell anything once, right? Or get someone to buy something once, But if you want people to continue to support you, and you want to continue to sell, stuff, it needs to be high quality, it needs to be stuff people actually want, So that's kind of where that all wraps around. So it wasn't a formal business plan so much as a strategy.
A strategy. So then you took that, you got into the coffee industry. So talk about, obviously it's a totally different beast,
Yeah.
Coffee businesses are popping up left and right now these days, and have been for a number of years.
Yeah, so that it was kind of the same thing. Is there's a void in the market, and it's funny, at the time we didn't really call it that, but we knew that's what that was the discussion. Basically, it's not like we were looking for a void in the market. We were just talking about things, and like no one's really doing this, and that seems silly. Like it seems like something someone should definitely do, and we think we could do a really good job with that. And so that was the coffee thing. Is you talk about like pre-workouts and how caffeine is the number one tested and proven ergogenic aid, but short of taking, you take caffeine pills, which is fine if you, as long as you drink water and stuff. If you don't, then you kind of end up with a little bit of a headache. Get that caffeine
hydrate a little bit.
Yeah. So it's like, especially in weightlifting, like it's you're tested by USADA. It's really strict guidelines. It's incredibly stringent, And so the thing is, like, well, you don't really know what's in supplements. Kind of tough with the industry not being regulated. And so what is the cleanest way to just get, caffeine, right? It's Caffeine and Kilos, and that's the coffee. And we said, okay, well, what if we made a coffee that's kind of for fitness, right? Like, or anyone could drink it, but that's kind of the thing, is why don't we make coffee that has higher caffeine content than your standard cup of coffee, right? Mm-hmm. And then, but the catch there is, but it still needs to fucking taste good. Right. It's just like the apparel. It's like we can make apparel for someone to wear the gym, but it still needs to look good and be something you're proud to wear. So you can go outside the gym and still represent, what you're all about, represent your lifestyle and the healthy lifestyle. Well, same thing with coffee. It's like we can make coffee that has higher caffeine content, so that if someone, you're going to work out or want a clean pre-workout and with no nonsense, it's just coffee, you could do that, but it also tastes good to where anyone could drink it or would drink it, right?
Yeah. And you guys use the funds from the event for the apparel line. So did you kind of use the apparel line to kind of get you into the coffee market? Or
those happened, like I said, around the same time. Like, no shit. Like, we probably sold our first t-shirt in whatever, like middle of June into June. Like, we were selling coffee in July, like whatever. We had them at the Invitational in September, like that kind of launch event. We had the apparel and the coffee at the same time. So nice. Yeah, and it was, so we definitely used money from the shirts, also from entrance fees, that was kind of the thing, is the only real investment, if you want to call it that, is we went to look for, okay, if we're going to do this, we need a venue. So we went looking at venues, and this one we looked at and said, man, it's big, it's good, it's got a decent location. Like, I think this would be a great venue. So we just need to put a deposit down for the venue, whatever, and it was like, I think it was like $7,000 or something. And so I just pulled out a credit card, and like did that. Didn't tell my wife right away. Didn't ask. Anyways, she'll figure it out. And but besides, we're gonna, and we knew
by the time she figures it out, we'll make some money.
That's it. Well, I knew the math on it, right? Like, I was confident. I said, okay, well, we'll check it out. If it's whatever, say it's $400 a team, if we get figure that out. Like, we only need whatever 18 teams, and we'll have
broke even, yeah.
We'll have that money. Like, we can get 18 teams, like that's no problem, whatever, And so, or whatever it was, like those are just kind of roundabout numbers. But that was it. And I was like, well, I'm 100% confident that we can get, whatever it is, 18 teams to sign up and do this thing,
Yeah.
So, because, like I said, we were in the community. We know people, and we know the different owners, different gyms, and all that. So yes, that was it. And then from there we did that, and then everything else was just 100% bootstrapped. It was just money from the early, like the pre-competition, any apparel sales pre-competition, from the entry fees from the competition, the sales the day of the event, like all that stuff. All that money just got rolled back in to keep purchasing more inventory and kind of growing what we're doing.
So did you guys kind of from the get-go, when you started seeing these sales in the coffee, know that, man, we're on to something here and we've hit it pretty good and it's time to really go all in? And
yeah, well, I mean, the part of the coffee too is something we realized early on is, it's a recurring purchase, right? And so if you want to get that continuity, some sort of continuity stream, I mean, you might really like a t-shirt, but I mean, you got that one design, like you're not going to buy that exact same shirt again, at least not for the next probably 2 or 3 years,
mm-hmm.
Now we do pretty frequent releases of new stuff, and we always have fresh stuff coming out. But it's not the same. Coffee is something where like you drink coffee every day, and even if how much you drink, or even if you only drink our coffee on the days you work out or something like that, still that's relatively frequent. And so it was the idea of like something we want to do and something we see kind of a void in the market, and it's a continuity product. And I think that every business should really work on or try to have some sort of a continuity product. Yeah. Man, I'll tell you, that's like the gym business. It's funny. I tell my wife sometimes, I'm like, man, the first of the month is weird because in the gym, I'm always like pumped for the first of the gym because everyone's paying, like you're getting paid. But then with C&K, it's like that's when all the bills are due.
Yeah.
It's like the two sides of things.
So are you guys partners in the gym also, or is the Caffeine and Kilos a totally separate entity?
Totally separate entity. So the gym, I've been owner of the gym since 2008. Caffeine and Kilos started in 2013.
Okay, got it. Now I'm just curious, kind of having both products and being in two totally different industries under one umbrella there. How many of your purchases online are just like strictly coffee?
Uh-huh.
How much are strictly apparel? And then what percentage are, hey, someone's buying coffee and I might as well grab a shirt?
Yeah. So, I mean, exact percentages, I'm not sure off the top of my head. What I do know is that our number one SKU. So like what's the number one item we sell is our most popular coffee blend, right? It's our PR blend coffee. So the PR blend coffee is like we sell more bags of that than we do any other individual item.
Okay.
However, overall sales, we sell more apparel than we do coffee, right? Because we have 5 or 6 kind of men's shirts, and most of the time 5 or 6 women's things. There's sweatshirts, there's socks, there's all that type of stuff. Whereas coffee, we have kind of 3 blends that are always in stock, and then we have a coffee of the month, which rotates through every month. And so so the number one most popular product is a coffee, but the overall we sell more apparel than coffee.
Which kind of lends itself to the profit margins on the product then, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming the profit margins on coffee, probably a little bit less than what you're getting out of a t-shirt.
Yeah. Pretty close. It's not way off. Like we want to talk about, like COGS, so the COGS on the shirt, are generally closer to, closer like that 20% around there somewhere. Where you talk about the coffee, you're going to get up closer to that kind of 30 range or so.
So being in that coffee market, who do you consider to be your competitors? Obviously, you're not going after like Folgers or, you're kind of just hitting people that are fully ingrained in fitness industry and people that are looking for that extra kick. And
yeah, man, competitors is an interesting way. I mean, you could kind of say, I guess, the supplement industry to a degree, because we don't really make supplements. We do the coffee as almost like a supplement to the supplement industry, right? It's almost like something, instead of taking a pre-workout, maybe drink coffee. But that's not necessarily what happens also. Like, I mean, I drink our coffee every day, regardless. And a lot of people do. I don't really pay too much attention to, like eye anybody down, like competition wise. I mean, one obvious one, a relatively obvious one, as some people would say, Black Rifle, like Black Rifle coffee. But you know what? Like, I don't think of them that way. And I know they don't either, because we've done a collaboration with them. Like we actually did a collab coffee that was a Black Rifle Caffeine and Kilos blend that we did together and sold together and did that. Right. So that's, I mean, I guess same thing. You could say Caveman Coffee because they're in the fitness industry. But Tate's a friend of mine. Tate Fletcher's a friend of mine. Every time we see each other at events, it's always good to see him. We've talked about doing things together as well. I just look at it, man, like honestly, like the more people that are drinking coffee and the more people that see or that help form a relationship in people's minds between coffee and working out, the more people that see those things as, compliments to one another, that's better for us. And so the truth is, like, if all of a sudden there were 3 or 4 more brands that popped up that were fitness brands that were really pushing coffee, like, fuck, man, that's all the better, because that's just going to get more people who kind of see that relationship and that complementary, relationship between coffee and working out.
Yeah, and that's kind of something I talked to Aaron about, and it's that Tesla approach where a lot of people think as another electric vehicle company comes in, oh, Elon's not going to like this. He's got more competition. But at the end of the day, his competition are gas vehicles. He's not really worried about electric vehicles. And for Aaron, it's kind of the same thing. Another person comes into this functional beverage industry that's focused on getting away from sugary drinks. Like, no, that's more people that are drifting over to that as opposed to all these big sugary drinks that are out there.
Dude, you nailed it. That's exactly it. And that's how we feel about the whole thing. It's like, who said it really well is actually Bedros Keuilian is a friend of mine. He's is the CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp.
Yeah, right? Empire Podcast.
The whole franchise. Yeah, exactly. So, I've heard Bedros say before, people ask him about like, oh, is CrossFit your competition? He's like, well, CrossFit? Fuck no. CrossFit's not my competition. McDonald's is my competition.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm worried about. Like, I'm not worried about these guys working out. I'm worried about the people that are not working out. And it's totally true. And that's, I have that same in the gym business. It's funny. It's like the cycling studio opened up, kind of in the same complex we are. And I said, good. I said, fuck yeah, that's great. And to tell you the truth, I'd be stoked if a CrossFit gym opened next door to me. I don't give a shit, because all that's going to do is that's just going to make us be better, right? Yeah. We're going to like work even harder, be even better. And if more people are working out, then that's great, dude. Like there's only like 18% of the population has a gym membership at all, and then, and only like 6% actually fucking attend a gym. Like the last thing I'm worried about are these other people doing that. Like I'm worried about the people that aren't going to the gym at all. Right.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense.
And so that's kind of how I see it with like the coffee side of things too. Like I'm not worried about the people that are making coffee in the fitness industry. I say, good. That's more people to have that relationship,
No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So how many employees do you guys currently have?
We have a pretty small crew. There's about seven of us, 7 or 8, yeah, right around there.
Now, did you find difficulties as you bring people on? You're kind of, obviously when you're starting the business, you're kind of wearing all hats and you're the sales guy and you're dealing with the money and you're dealing with kind of being the face of the business. And, what struggles did you face of now I'm turning this responsibility over to somebody. It's no longer mine. Obviously it frees up time for me to focus on my strengths, but how do you make sure that person's kind of doing things the way that you want them to do them?
Yeah, that's interesting. So our hiring process has been because we're still pretty small. Most of our hires have been people that we had previous relationships with or knew from other places, and they've all worked out really well. It's like someone is example. There's a girl who's going to my gym, and actually, when I don't teach anymore, but when I was teaching, she actually was one of my students. I had her, and she was a freshman in PE. Anyway, she's going to my gym, and she was moving to Sacramento for school. And I was like, oh shit, and I knew we needed somebody for customer service. Like, well, what are you doing for a job up there? And she worked at a restaurant. She's like, oh, I'm just gonna get a job at a restaurant, whatever. I was like, oh, well, you want to work for Caffeine and Kilos, do customer service? Oh, she was stoked, and she does a really good job. Like she's great, goes above and beyond all that. And it's kind of fun because I've known her since she was, 14, whatever. I had her when she was a freshman in PE. Now she's 24, 25 years old and is one of our best employees. Right. And so we have a few kind of situations like that. But yeah, as far as handing stuff over, one thing that I learned kind of the hard way are you just have to have meetings, man. Like it's funny because you try to avoid it. You're like, all right, so like the basics, you need expectations, priorities, deadlines, and expectations. Like those are the 3 things, right? As long as any task you assign, there's priorities, deadlines, and expectations. And if you don't give all three of those things, you're probably going to be disappointed, because they're either going to have it later than you expected to, or they're going to do something else first, or it's not going to be kind of what you're looking for, And so you just have to float those things by them. But I also am a big believer in giving people a job and letting them do it. And that's kind of been a little issue in the past with some people who maybe aren't as much of a, I guess you could use the term self-starter, where you just kind of give them a task and then when you get it back, it's just not good, or not what you expected, or it's not getting done at the time it should, or they do it once, it's a recurring task, and they do it once or twice and it doesn't happen after that, And so that's where it's like, all right, so it's a balancing act between, giving people enough rope to do a good job, because ultimately, when you do things the way you want to do them, it's probably going to turn out better than if you do something the way that you think that I would do it myself.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why those three things, deadlines, priorities, and expectations come into play. So it's like, here's the task. This is what I want the end result to be. The end result should be this or better. If you think you can make it better, fucking make it better. But I expect it to at least be like this. And then, this is the priority, and they just go from there.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it still gives them the freedom. This is what I need and when I need it by, and the means you take to get there, and it's all up to you.
Yep. And then, and obviously along with that, if you need help, let me know, right? Like, this is how I've done it before. I'm not sure that's the best way to do it, but it's somewhere to start anyway, right? Like this, and then like the first thing I said is meetings is we don't have a ton of meetings, and I really kind of was resistant to have too many meetings early on. But then you realize like everything can just flow so much better, and it comes down to that priority, expectations, and deadlines. That's where that fits into. So we do once a week, we do an alignment meeting, kind of all hands on deck, and we talk about, okay, what's coming up? What's the, how did everything go last week? Did anybody not finish anything last week that needs to be done? Not in a judgmental perspective, but just in a where are we? Where are we at?
Yeah, let's work to get there.
Let's work to get there. So first kind of go around, like what are, like everyone has to have like celebrate somebody else on something they did positive the previous week. Then what's something that you are proud of from the previous week. And then you go through, okay, what do we have coming up? What didn't get done? What needs to get done? Any big tasks this week that you need help with? And then just kind of here's what, as a group, what we have going on this week, what release we have, what needs to be done for that. And then things out in the future, like what needs to happen to make sure we stay on track ahead of things proactively. So we do that, and that's takes 20 minutes once a week, and then we meet with and then I meet with everybody in midweek for individual kind of goal setting review, right? So what were your priority tasks last week? How'd those go? Any issues there? What are your priorities for this next week? So they leave that meeting midweek and they know, like, all right, this is what I have this week. Here are my primary goal, and then my secondary tasks, and what are the kind of deadlines, expectations with those.
Yeah, nice. I mean, it definitely outlines it for them and kind of gives them a structure that allows them to thrive.
Right.
So you mentioned Bedros Keuilian. Yeah. So I got to imagine you've had a number of mentors along the way that have helped you.
Yeah.
Did you have a mentor structured, one for business, one for kind of the brand itself, one for personal?
Yeah, man. So, I haven't had too many people that I've talked with regularly, or like an official kind of mentorship role. The one person who really kind of fits in that I hired is Craig Ballantyne. Craig, if you know who Craig is, he's smart. He knows business. He just kind of understands business. Also, he's really good with personal stuff as far as time management and that type of stuff. And that's why I really hired him. I have two young kids. I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I have, 2 businesses and that other stuff going on. So how do you juggle that? How do you run the businesses and have those be successful? And at the same time, like eat dinner with the family, and spend time with my kids, not on my phone and that type of stuff.
Yeah, he is the most disciplined man in the world, apparently.
Right. Yeah. Hey, I don't know if he is or not, but I'll tell you what, man, he sure gets a lot of shit done. It's incredible sometimes because I just kind of see the output of things, and I know he has some people working for him, but still just the output of things, that guy, he just doesn't miss,
Yeah, him and Bedros seem to have a good thing going, especially with the podcast and kind of just putting a lot of content out there for people.
Absolutely.
And his grids that he talks about every week or every
The
2
grid,
weeks.
yeah, exactly. So I hired Craig in November so it's been whatever, less than a year, but that's definitely been very positive for me for lots of reasons. And then there's just people that just a lot of friends in the industry, like I like to Aaron Hine, for example, you had Aaron on. I really like Aaron. We talk every now and then. We've gone out there and sat down with them and, okay, what are you guys doing? What are we doing? How can we kind of work together? They were a little, they're bigger than us now. They were then also, but they had a few things kind of going for them and said, hey, why don't you guys do this or that? Or you should use this software. And he was great. He actually said, you should use this software for something. And this girl is our employee that manages that. And then looked at her and said, tell him everything he wants to know, help him out. Like, you are his trainer or whatever. So even a week or two after that, I would call her or send her an email and she'd always get back to me and basically taught us how to use the software they were using and all that, so Aaron was really helpful kind of early on with that. One more person also I really appreciate and I talk to a lot is Dave Spitz from California Strength.
Okay.
So he has the weightlifting gym out there and he's been in business a long time, done a lot of stuff, and he's that's always good conversations too.
And he kind of helps you out
on
the fitness side and kind of understanding training and
exactly.
So it does seem like you have every area of your life really does have its own mentor in a way, from Craig Valentine helping personal and the business side. Yeah. So what's next for Caffeine and Kilos? So what are you guys working on?
Well, so Caffeine and Kilos, one thing is pretty new. Just a couple months ago, we launched this Coffee of the Month I was telling you, and that's actually been really cool because, people for the most part kind of have something they like and stick to, but, you might eat the same thing every day for lunch, but not forever, right? Like you might eat the same thing every day for lunch for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, but usually not for a couple of years. So it's just nice to kind of get some more variety in there. People with the coffee, they can get the standby, the classic blends they like, but the Coffee of the Month is really cool because something different every month, and it's just kind of new experience and that's been big. That's been a big hit. So we're excited about that. Just kind of doing a little more with the coffee side of things there. And then as far as the apparel is just, we're just looking to do a few more kind of unique type things or things that other people in the industry may not be doing, but there's definitely a need for. For example, well, by the time this comes out, they'll be out. But like we made some slides, right? Some sandals, nice. Which is funny. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's one of those things. Like everyone think about people going to the gym, like maybe they've got their CrossFit shoes on, but if a lot of people, if they're doing weightlifting, they come in and wearing whatever sandals and change their shoes. And so just kind of doing stuff that isn't anything necessarily groundbreaking. That's with Caffeine and Kilos, our lane, we know our lane, and our lane isn't necessarily innovating the newest material, the newest sweat wicking material. That's not what we do. That's not what we're great at. What we do and what we're great at is making all the shit that you like to wear anyway, but making it cool and making it look good and making something that you can wear in the gym, you can wear out of the gym, that you feel good wearing it. And it's a way for you to kind of represent your lifestyle and represent what you do,
Yeah, I think the slides would definitely add a nice touch to.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's wearing lifters into the gym to go do weightlifting. So.
Right. That's it, man. And it's funny. It's like the whole idea of giving people something you want to wear and can wear. I had a personal experience just like a week ago where that was exactly it. And it was kind of cool because it's like that's what the brand's all about. Is my wife and I were down in Mexico for a little vacation away from the kids. And we're at this resort. Good. Oh, dude, it was great. We're at this resort and I was wearing a Caffeine and Kilos hat. And these people just come up to me and they're like, hey, what's up? So you do CrossFit, you do weightlifting, what's going on? Like they, whatever. And they were, they do CrossFit, it's a Canadian couple, and they do CrossFit up there and having a good time. But it was because I was wearing the hat, they kind of knew. And then there's, that was it. And it's like, man, shit, that's what it's all about. It's like an opportunity to kind of represent, that healthy, active lifestyle out and be proud to do it.
It's obviously got to give you some amount of pride knowing that just seeing that logo itself kind of spurs people to start that conversation and show appreciation for the brand.
It's cool, man. Yeah, at that time it didn't settle that much. I'm like, oh, it's cool. And then I was telling my business partner about it, and he's like, dude, that's fucking great. That's the whole point. And I was like,
it's a worldwide
shit,
brand.
you're right. That is the whole point. Like, because you're just in it, right? So you oversee those. It's like you own a gym, someone loses 60 pounds. It's like, whatever. Like, it happens all the time, And you got to step back and be like, oh shit, actually, that's impressive.
Like the life-changing event for them.
Yeah, it's big.
Nice. So diving into financials a little bit, from its inception, how long did it really take you guys to get a profit going?
Oh man, so profit's an interesting term. So we didn't, we didn't take salary. Like, we didn't take pay for over a year with Caffeine and Kilos, and so that was the things we're doing it and working on it and all that. And Dean actually like quit his job and was like, he was handling all the warehousing side of things too. And yeah, we didn't take a dime for, over a year,
You just keep reinvesting, right?
Every penny we made went back into more inventory and that type of thing. Absolutely. And so, yeah, it was then after about a year or so, we started kind of taking a little bit of money from it and doing that type of thing. Until maybe a year or so after that, when I read, that book by Mike, Profit First, and then kind of implemented that strategy, and then started going from there. So.
Nice. So do you guys continue to see a good amount of year-over-year growth as the business goes on?
Yeah.
Obviously there's more people getting into fitness. CrossFit's somewhat in a weird area right now with their paradigm shift that's going on.
Yeah. It's been different stages. So there's, I guess when we first started, we skyrocketed.
Like, it's going to be hard to beat that.
Yeah. Like, you can't, there's no, but, I shouldn't say there's no way, but it was incredible. And after that, it's slow growth, but still kind of growed year over year. We had a year or two where it was kind of plateaued a little more. And then now we're starting to see that upswing a little bit as well. So, nice. That's the whole thing, man. Like, that's business. Like, it's not all rainbows. And it's funny, man, like, you talk to a lot of people, everybody's crushed it. Oh, it's fucking great, and then you get them alone and they're like, oh, well, actually, you know what? We're working on some different things. And that's how it goes. Like, you make some shifts, you make some adjustments, so we're growing now. Things are good. But after, I think it was year 3 or 4, we kind of had a kind of stagnant for a year or two. And then, but it's one of those things. In the end, it's good because that causes you to kind of do some reflection, look at some of the things you're doing and the way you're doing things. And okay, well, why is this happening? Where are the expenses that shouldn't be there? Where are the opportunities that we're not taking advantage of, and that type of thing. So, that's
definitely
that's how you improve.
Yeah. When the business is skyrocketing, you start getting into all these other areas that you really don't need to.
Yeah.
And when times get tight, you start finding all these efficiencies on, this really isn't that necessary. So we might have to cut this out.
Or do we need to carry this much inventory? Like, probably could have less inventory on hand, and it's like, different things come up for sure.
Yeah.
You also, when things are like growing really quickly, it's like you kind of get a bad habit of not tracking things as much. Like, you implement something new and like maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Like, business is going up, so you assume it's working, right? Like, whereas when, which is obviously a bad habit. But when things are a little tighter, it's like you kind of look at things, you measure things better, manage things a little better, and so then the trick is then to keep those habits up during times of growth.
Yeah, you just don't want to settle and be just sitting there and then business go as it goes.
Exactly. Yeah.
To close this up, I got some quick questions to ask, kind of rapid fire, 3 of them. So what financial metric do you really measure the success of the business? Is it just overall sales?
Oh, well, yeah. Sales profit is the end of the day, right? You want to look at the bottom line, not the top line.
And if you had one get out of business jail free card, call anybody, you're kind of in a slump here. Who are you calling?
Oh man. Well, actually, maybe because I'm paying him, but I would,
maybe I'm paying him. I better call him and use his services.
Craig Mount.
I got his number and I paid for it. I'm going to use it.
That's it. Like, it's funny, man. Like, I don't that often. We communicate weekly, but out of that, I don't that often. But every now and then I have a question. I'm like, shit, man, what should I do? And then I'm like, oh yeah, I should ask Craig. Like, why wouldn't I just ask? Because you're always trying to come up with your own answers. It's like human nature. So yeah, I'd send Craig an email, get that squared away.
Nice. So let's say Kevin from North Dakota gets asked the same question. He's thinking about jumping into the apparel line, starting his own gym, getting into coffee, and he says, I'm calling Danny.
Yeah, man.
What type of advice are you going to give him if he's kind of worried about jumping in and getting into a whole entrepreneurial effort?
Oh, well, I just think that you just got to decide if it's what you want to do. Like, if you want to do it, I think go for it. I think people are scared to start because it's this unknown thing. They think that business is like this big, scary fucking monster, but it's not, man. Like, there are a million ways to make money, like and I think that part of me, or part of the reason why I was never that scared of it, so to speak, is I saw it growing up. My grandfather owned businesses. My parents ran a business for a while when I was growing up, or actually the entire time I was growing up. And then, and then it was funny. Then when I was in college, my dad he got out of business. They sold the business, and then he went back to school and went to college the same time I was going to college. So like I've seen it all. Like, I've seen my grandfather who, started with nothing and built up these companies and had a few different businesses going. And that's all he did, like he just worked for himself, and I kind of worked for him a little bit. And I saw again with my parents running this business. And then, you know what, like when it was time to be done, it was just done. And my dad went back to school, and like, it wasn't a big deal, and so I seen all that. It was just, I was never scared to do business, to try business. Like, I've seen it be successful. It's like you provide people with goods and or services they need, and they give you money for it, just like you do with other people. Like, it's not a big deal, So I think that's probably the advice. Like, man, if it's something you really want to do, just do it. Like, go for it. Like, I think everybody, as long as you want to do it and you're dedicated to learning, to being a lifelong learner, like that's the main thing, then you can be successful. It's not this crazy thing. It's not fucking luck. Like, I hate that shit. Like, it's not getting lucky, because you know what, like reading 30 to 50 books a year doesn't have shit to do with luck. It's got fucking nothing to do with luck. Pulling out your credit card and putting $7,000 down on this event when you have no idea, like you don't have anybody signed up for it, but spending the time and the effort and going and talking to people and physically going and talking to people and building a website and doing all that was fucking nothing to do with luck,
Yeah. I mean, it's just that will to succeed and just kind of believing in yourself.
That's it, man. Like, just fucking do it. Like, that's it. I mean, you see it, people, it's crazy too, especially people in fitness. Like, you see it, like, you couldn't lift this weight, you exercised, now you can. Like, you see that like work like yields results. So why would it be any different, right? Like, you don't know how to do something, fucking figure it out, learn, and I think that's the thing, man. It's like, what are you worried about? You don't know how to do it? Man, I got news for you. Nobody does. Like, nobody knew how when they started. Like, nobody's born knowing how to do anything, like you learn it like any other skill.
And I think this speaks to, I was listening to another podcast you were on. A lot of people out there are trying to come up with like, what's the next biggest thing? Like, I need to find the next unicorn out there. And one of the comments you made was, if you really just look at yourself and you can identify problems that you can solve for yourself, more than likely there's shit out there that someone's dealing with the same exact thing. Yeah. And there's a whole market out there of stuff that you handle yourself, and there's a lot of people out there that are dealing with the same thing.
And that, one of the people I really got that from, or talks about it, is a friend of mine, Noah Kagan. So Noah has some companies, and he's a mentor of mine for sure. We talk a bunch of times. Actually, he'd be would have been a really good answer for a mentor, because sometimes he'll call me and be like, how's business? What's up? What are you struggling with? Like, just out of nowhere, just like wants to talk. But so he was an early employee at Facebook, and now he has a couple companies of his own, really successful. And that's every company he's had has been that exact thing. Like, he wanted something, and so he made a software for himself, and then realized, oh shit, I bet other people want this too. And then for that company, he developed a software to promote that company, and was like, oh shit, I bet other people could use this too. And there's another company, and that's it, man. And that's kind of that's how things go a lot of times.
Well, Danny, thank you very much for joining us on FitBiz Talk. I really appreciate your time. Continued success with Caffeine and Kilos going forward, man. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much again for listening to the show. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Danny. If you want to see what Danny's up to, you can find him on Instagram at Danny_Lehr. That's DANNY_LEHR, or at Caffeine and Kilos. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a review or subscribe to us on Apple iTunes. If you're heading over to the Caffeine and Kilos site, use the code FitBiz10 for 10% off your next order. Next week, we have Mind Pump Adam coming on the show from Mind Pump, one of the top podcasts in all of fitness. See you next week.